An old man stands on a mountaintop, dying. His eyes scan the horizon. The land spreads before him like a promise made visible. Gilead to the north, the Mediterranean to the west, the Jordan Valley below. Every detail sharp, every color vivid. At 120 years old, his vision remains perfect. His body remains strong, but he cannot cross over. 40 years ago, he led 2 million people out of slavery. He parted seas. He brought water from rocks. He spoke with God face to face. He carried the law of the Almighty down from smoking mountains. He endured complaints, rebellions, golden calves, and wandering. And now, standing at the edge of everything he fought for, he must die outside of it. One mistake, one moment of anger at Meribah, when he struck the rock instead of speaking to it, taking credit for God's miracle. "Must we bring water for you out of this rock?" he had shouted, as if his power, not God's, performed the miracle. Now the price. See the land, but never touch it. The Lord tells Moses, "This is the land I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not go over there." Then Moses, the servant of the Lord, dies. God himself buries him in a valley. No one knows where. No shrine, no pilgrimage site. Just an unmarked grave for history's greatest liberator. This is how his story ends, but it's not where it begins. Act 1. The basket in the Nile. Born under a death sentence. Egypt, circa 1526 BCE. Pharaoh has a problem. The Hebrew slaves multiply too quickly. What began as 70 people has become millions. They threaten Egyptian power simply by existing. So Pharaoh issues a decree: kill every Hebrew baby boy, drown them in the Nile. A Levite woman gives birth to a son. She hides him for 3 months, but eventually can conceal him no longer. She weaves a basket from papyrus reeds, seals it with tar and pitch, places her baby inside, and sets it among the reeds at the river's edge. Her sister Miriam watches from a distance. Pharaoh's daughter comes to bathe. She finds the basket, opens it. The baby cries. She knows immediately this is a Hebrew child, one marked for death by her father's decree. But something moves her: compassion, defiance, divine intervention. She decides to save him. Miriam steps forward. "Shall I find a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" "Yes," Pharaoh's daughter says. Miriam fetches the baby's own mother. The princess pays her to nurse her own son. When he is weaned, he returns to the palace. Pharaoh's daughter adopts him. She names him Moses, drawn out, because she drew him out of the water. The boy destined to drown becomes a prince of Egypt. Act 2. The murder that changed everything. From palace to wilderness. Moses grows up in luxury, the best education, the finest clothes, Egyptian power. For 40 years he lives as royalty while his people suffer as slaves. Then one day he sees an Egyptian taskmaster beating a Hebrew slave. Moses looks around. No witnesses. He kills the Egyptian and hides the body in the sand. The next day, Moses tries to stop 2 Hebrews from fighting. One asks, "Who made you a ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" The secret is out. Pharaoh hears about the murder and seeks to kill Moses.
Moses flees across the desert to Midian, hundreds of miles from everything he's known. At a well, he defends 7 sisters from aggressive shepherds. Their father, Jethro, a Midianite priest, invites Moses to stay. Moses marries Zipporah, one of the daughters. They have 2 sons. Moses becomes a shepherd. The prince becomes a nobody. For 40 years he tends sheep in the wilderness, forgotten by Egypt, unknown to his people, far from power. 40 years in the palace, 40 years in the desert, 80 years of preparation for what comes next. Act 3. The Burning Bush. When God calls the wrong man. One day, Moses is tending sheep near Mount Horeb. He sees a bush on fire, but it doesn't burn up. Curious, he approaches. A voice speaks from the flames. "Moses, Moses." "Here I am." "Take off your sandals. You're standing on holy ground. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Moses hides his face, afraid to look at God. God continues, "I have seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries. I know their suffering. So I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of Egypt." Moses stammers, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" God, "I will be with you." Moses, "What if they don't believe me or listen to me?" God gives him signs, a staff that turns into a serpent, a hand that becomes leprous and is healed. Moses tries again, "I am slow of speech and tongue." God, patient but firm, "Who makes mouths? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will teach you what to say." Moses makes one final plea, "Please, send someone else." God's anger burns, but he compromises. Aaron, Moses' brother, will be his spokesman. Moses, the reluctant prophet, heads back to Egypt. He's 80 years old. Most men are dead by this age. Moses is just beginning. Act 4. Let my people go. When power meets greater power. Moses and Aaron stand before Pharaoh and declare, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go, so they may hold a festival in my honor in the wilderness." "Is that so?" Pharaoh retorts. "And who is the Lord? Why should I listen to him and let Israel go? I don't know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Pharaoh responds by making the slaves work harder. They must now make bricks without being given straw, yet meet the same quotas. The Israelites turn on Moses. "May the Lord judge you. You've made us a stench to Pharaoh." God isn't finished. He sends Moses back with a promise. "I will perform many miracles before the children of Israel are delivered from bondage." Then come the plagues, 10 judgments on Egypt, 10 demonstrations that the God of slaves is greater than the gods of kings. Water to blood, frogs, gnats, flies, livestock disease, boils, hail, locusts, darkness. Each time Moses warns Pharaoh, each time Pharaoh hardens his heart. Each time the plague comes, each time Pharaoh promises to let them go, then changes his mind. When Aaron's staff becomes a serpent, Pharaoh's magicians duplicate it, but Aaron's serpent swallows theirs, a preview of what's coming. The Hebrew word used is tanin, meaning dragon, the same word used for Egypt itself in prophecy. This isn't just a power contest, it's spiritual warfare. Act 5. The night the angel passed over. When blood marked the difference. God announces, "About midnight I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from Pharaoh's throne to the slave grinding grain. But the Israelites receive different instructions. Each family must sacrifice an unblemished male lamb, smear its blood on their doorposts, roast the lamb, and eat it that night. When God sees the blood, he will pass over that house. The destroyer will not enter. It's not enough to be Hebrew, not enough to live in Goshen, not enough to belong to the right ethnic group. Only the blood saves. Midnight comes. A cry rises across Egypt. Every household without blood on the door loses its firstborn. Pharaoh's son, the prisoner's son, the cattle's firstborn. Death is no respecter of persons. Pharaoh summons Moses in the night. Up, leave my people. Go, worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds and go, and also bless me in the name of the Lord. The Egyptians urge them to hurry, pressing silver, gold, and clothing upon them. After 430 years, the last 80 in slavery, the Israelites walk out of Egypt, free. Approximately 600,000 men, plus women and children, perhaps 2 million people, the greatest mass exodus in ancient history. Act 6. When the sea stood up. Trapped between army and ocean. But Pharaoh changes his mind again. His grief turns to rage. He musters his army, 600 choice chariots, plus all the other chariots of Egypt, and pursues them. The Israelites camp by the Red Sea. They look back, dust clouds on the horizon, the Egyptian army. Terror grips them. "Did you bring us out here to die? We should have stayed in Egypt." Moses responds, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." God tells Moses, "Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground." Moses stretches out his hand. God sends a strong east wind. All night it blows. The waters part. Walls of water on the right and left, dry ground in between. The Israelites walk through, 2 million people crossing on foot, protected by pillars of cloud and fire. The Egyptians pursue them into the sea, but at dawn God clogs their chariot wheels. Panic spreads. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt. Moses stretches his hand over the sea again. The waters return. The Egyptian army, every chariot, every horseman, every soldier drowns. Not one survives. When the Israelites see God's power, they put their faith in him and in Moses and sing a song of praise. Act 7. The Mountain of Fire. When the law came from flames. 3 months after leaving Egypt, they reach Mount Sinai. God calls Moses up the mountain. For 40 days and 40 nights, Moses stays there, no food, no water. God gives him the law, the 10 Commandments, the covenant, instructions for worship, designs for the tabernacle, everything written on tablets of stone. Meanwhile, at the base of the mountain, the people grow restless. They tell Aaron, "Make us gods who will go before us. As for this Moses, we don't know what happened to him." Aaron collects their gold and fashions a calf. The people declare, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." They build an altar and hold a festival, offering sacrifices to the idol. 40 days after hearing God speak the commandment, "You shall have no other gods before me," they break it. God tells Moses what's happening. He offers to destroy Israel and start over with Moses, but Moses intercedes, pleading for mercy. Moses descends with the 2 tablets. When he sees the calf and the dancing, rage overtakes him. He throws down the tablets, shattering them. He burns the calf, grinds it to powder, scatters it on water, and makes the Israelites drink it. 3,000 die that day in judgment. Moses returns to the mountain. God makes new tablets. For another 40 days, Moses stays with God. His face becomes so radiant from being in God's presence that he must veil it when speaking to the people. Act 8. The 40 Years, when an 11-day journey took a lifetime. From Sinai, Moses leads them to the border of Canaan. He sends 12 spies to scout the land. They return with reports of fertility and giants. 10 spies say it's impossible. Only Joshua and Caleb say God will give them victory. The people rebel. They want to return to Egypt. God decrees, this generation will die in the wilderness. For 40 years they will wander, 1 year for each day the spies explored the land. Only those under 20, plus Joshua and Caleb, will enter the promised land. 40 years of circling, complaining, rebelling. God provides manna daily, water from rocks, clothes that don't wear out, protection from enemies, but the people are never satisfied. At Meribah, they complain again about water. God tells Moses to speak to the rock. Instead, Moses, frustrated and angry, strikes it twice with his staff, saying, "Must we bring you water out of this rock?" Water gushes out. The people drink, but God tells Moses, "Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them." One sin, one moment of pride, one taking credit for what God alone could do. The consequence, Moses will see the promised land, but never enter it.
Act 9. The final words, when the leader must let go. Moses is 120 years old. His eyes remain clear, his strength undiminished, yet he knows it's time. He assembles the people. He appoints Joshua as his successor. "Be strong and courageous," Moses tells them. "The Lord himself goes before you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." He recites the law again, all of it. He sings a song prophesying Israel's future. He blesses the 12 tribes, each with specific words. Then God commands, "Go up to Mount Nebo, view the land of Canaan. Then you will die on the mountain just as Aaron your brother died because you broke faith with me at Meribah Kadesh." Moses climbs Mount Nebo alone. From the peak, God shows him everything: Gilead, Dan, Naphtali, Ephraim, Manasseh, Judah, the Mediterranean, the Negev, the Jordan Valley. "This is the land I promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," God says. "I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not cross over there." Then Moses, the servant of the Lord, dies. God buries him in a valley. To this day, no one knows where. The Israelites mourn for 30 days. Epilogue: The man who spoke with God. There has never been another prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, the text declares. The Lord sent him to perform all the miraculous signs and wonders in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh. Moses' life divides into perfect thirds: 40 years as Egyptian prince, 40 years as Midianite shepherd, 40 years as Israel's liberator. The first 2/3 prepared him for the last. He started reluctant, arguing with God at every turn. "Who am I? What if they don't believe? Send someone else. Yet he became the leader of a nation, the lawgiver, the mediator between God and humanity. His story isn't about perfection. He murdered an Egyptian, lost his temper repeatedly, disobeyed God at Meribah Kadesh. Yet God used him more than almost anyone in history. 3 major world religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, honor him as prophet and leader. He wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. His law shaped civilizations. His Passover still echoes in Jewish homes every year. His name represents liberation from slavery across cultures and centuries. But he never crossed the Jordan, never set foot in the land he spent 40 years reaching. He died outside the promise, looking in. Why? Perhaps because the journey matters more than the destination. Perhaps because faithful service doesn't guarantee worldly reward. Perhaps because even the greatest leaders are still human, still subject to God's justice, still accountable for their actions. Or perhaps because Moses' true legacy wasn't a piece of land. It was the law, the knowledge of God, the demonstration that God hears the cries of the oppressed and delivers them. Remember the opening, Moses on Mount Nebo, perfect vision, dying because he couldn't enter. That image captures the tragedy and triumph of his life. He saw what God promised. He brought millions to its border. He did everything God asked, minus one moment of pride. And that one moment cost him everything. Or did it? 1,500 years later, Moses appears again, on another mountain. At the Transfiguration, Moses and Elijah appear with Jesus discussing his coming death in Jerusalem. Moses finally enters the Promised Land, not the earthly Canaan, but a greater promise, a heavenly one. The man who couldn't cross the Jordan in his body crosses into glory in his spirit. The liberator who freed slaves becomes a testament to ultimate freedom. The reluctant prophet becomes the model for all prophets who follow. Today, when people cry out under oppression, they remember Moses. When slaves seek freedom, they sing, "Let my people go." When the powerless face the powerful, they take courage from a stuttering shepherd who confronted Pharaoh. Moses never wanted the job, never felt qualified, never stopped doubting himself. Yet he parted seas, brought down plagues, carried the law of God, and led 2 million people across a desert for 40 years. Not because he was strong, because God was. Not because he was eloquent, because God spoke through him. Not because he was brave, because God went before him. That's the lesson of Moses. God doesn't need our perfection. He needs our obedience. He doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. He doesn't choose the confident, he makes the weak strong through his power. Moses died at 120, buried by God himself in an unmarked grave. But his story didn't die. It lived in every law, every Passover, every cry for freedom, every reluctant servant who said yes when God called. The reluctant liberator became the greatest leader Israel ever knew, not because his weaknesses, because God's strength was perfected in them. And from an unmarked grave on a forgotten mountain, his voice still speaks. When God calls, answer. When God sends, go. When God promises, believe. Even if you never reach the destination, the journey with God is enough.